Hi guys, it's Matt from Maxon UK. So with all of these cloth tutorials that I've been doing recently, my boss turned around and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be really good if we could have some openable curtains that blow in the wind and make sure that the texture stays where it is?" I was like, okay, let's go away and figure that out then. So here, as you can see, is my example, and this is what we are going to be working on today. So to start with, I'm going to simply go with a plane, okay, and I'm going to change its orientation. So it's 20 by 20, which is, it's not too bad. I will subdivide later, but to start with, I'm just going to work on a 10 by 10 basis. That might seem a bit odd, but you'll see why a little bit later on. So a 10 by 10 basis, and this is going to be my curtain. So I'm going to look in my content browser and I'm going to look in for some sort of carpet material. I know it sounds odd because this is what I've used, but the carpet material here, wow, it's got a nice pattern on it. So this is well, I say nice pattern, it has a pattern on it that I can then apply to my curtain, and then you can scale it up and scale it down using the V lengths just to give us something that's going to look like a really awful curtain that you'd find in a 70s hotel somewhere. But nonetheless, you've got a pattern that will force it to stay and to stick. So that is on the plane at the moment. Okay, and that's where I'm going to stop. I've started it as a completely flat and open curtain because I found that is the best way to quickly get your pattern on here. It's UVW mapping, sorry, and it's straight on there. You can go for UV mapping if you wanted to do that, but I would recommend doing that first whilst your curtain is nicely sort of laid out in that nice flat fashion. Maybe I'll change this a little bit, but you can see that it does stretch the pattern. So if I want to do that, I need to just adjust my not that one, this a little bit so that it's not quite so stretched. So what would that, 12.5? There we go. So that they're a bit square, which is fine. Okay, so that's my curtain there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cube, and that cube is going to go roughly there, but it doesn't really matter for the moment, and it's going to be quite thin and quite small because this is going to act as kind of, well, like the curtain hooks basically. Ignore what shape it is or where they are at the moment. It's just for reference, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it in a cloner. So holding down Alt and clicking cloner will make my cube a child of the cloner that I've just created. And that is not the direction that I want. I want them to be working per step in the X direction. Okay, so not that. 50. Because what I want, if I just turn ground shading back on, I want them to match each one of those. So I'm just going to look at my side view. There we go. And I'm going to display this in ground shading lines. Okay, so my plane is still that by that, so I might need to increase my height segments. Let's go to wireframe. There we go. Okay, so that's a bit better. You want a reasonable amount of geometry. We will add more in a bit. So let's lower that down so they're there. So is it 30? I probably want that exactly at -200. And then it's 40, 40, 40, and brrr, there we go, I have 13. So that they match each of those. I'm going to move that down a bit. Okay. Oh, don't need 13. Just 10 or 11. There we go. And that matches each of those. And what we are going to do is we are going to use cloth and the cloth belt to tie these points to that. At the moment there aren't any points on my plane, so I am going to do just your current state to object, and then I'm going to turn that off, and not that I need to hide it, but I'm just going to group that in a group called backup, which I'll hide as well, just for extra precautionary stuff. And then the cube, the cloner, sorry, I'm also going to do right click and current state to object, because the one thing that I need is I need all of these cubes to be editable, and I need them to be 1. So I'm going to put the cloner in the backup now so that I can't see that and I've got nothing to do it, and I'm left with these cubes. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to do connect and delete, because I want one set of cubes, and I can delete that cloner null now. So this I shall call curtain hooks, I guess, curtain rail, it's up to you. And this, funnily enough, I shall call curtain. So the curtain hooks I'm just going to move just behind there so that we can't see them, and I will hide them eventually anyway. And then my curtain, I am going to go to my simulation tags and I'm going to give it a cloth tag, which means at the moment I press play it will just fall into non-existence, which is no use whatsoever. If anybody's seen the flag tutorial that I did, like, oh God, probably a year ago, then what you can do is you can use the cloth belt tag to stick things to it. So it says at the moment belt on, and what do I want it to belt on? Well, I want it to belt onto the curtain hooks, and then if I press play again it will fall because I haven't told it what I want to belt on where. And to do that you need to use the points tool, and I'm just going to go to my selection and I'm just going to paint along the top and the second row. See, you can see that those cubes are roughly the right sort of size, and that's what I'm going to fit to. So click my cloth belt, click set, and you can see those points go from orange to yellow. This means that they are now set. Okay, now if I press play you can see that the curtain dangles there, so that's fine. What I want to do really quickly, with my curtain hook, there you go, you can see that my axis is there, that's fine. I'm just going to increase my timeline, otherwise the animation will run out before I've had a chance to show you anything. So if I just press play now, I've got the curtain, and I'm going to use the scale tool on my curtain hooks, and you can see that I can scale this together. We've got a lot of settings to work through first, because at the moment this is, well, pants, shall we say. So I'm going to just work my way through some of the settings that will make this a lot better. Go back to the beginning of the animation and your curtain will ping back to where it was, but you also need to click undo to make sure that my curtain hooks stay exactly where they were as well. So with my curtain, say there's nowhere near enough geometry, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on all of it, or Command A, sorry, then right click, and I'm going to subdivide, and I'm probably going to subdivide another one. Okay, I probably could have done that in one go, but hey ho. But what I need to do, because that's added more geometry, those points are no longer set because they're technically not the same points. But because I had them selected before, they are selected again, which means this bit's much easier. I don't have to nip in and select all of those, I can just do set. And now once again we have that all set together, which is fine. So now if I press play, ooh, that stretches out quite a lot. There's a lot of geometry there. That's a little bit ridiculous, so we're going to have to adjust some of those. But you can see that now if I scale those curtain hooks, that crumples much nicely. Much nicely? Wow, I'm just making up language now. So back to the beginning and undo. And I'm going to need to adjust some of those settings. I mean, I suppose it is quite heavy. There is a lot of material there. And what we can do is we can look at our forces here and we can see how much drag and wind direction. At the moment I'm going to turn off all of the forces for the curtain except gravity. I don't want there to be anything other than the gravity that will drag that down. So if I press play you can see that it stretches quite a lot. And that's going to be done here under the tag there. So we've got various settings that I'm going to need to play with. You can't increase the stiffness any higher than 100%. You can, however, in a way increase the iterations and it does make it slightly stiffer because it thinks about it a few times before working it out. So 3, there we go, it's starting to not be quite so heavy. And maybe if I did that to 5, it sags a bit, but it's not too bad. I might lower the flexi in a tad. Okay, you can see that it's busy being crazy. Okay, I might lower the bounce and zero out the friction just to see what this is going to do. See, we're still getting a lot of drag down there, so let's see what happens if I whack that up to 50. There we go. It's bouncing up and down, but it's being a lot sort of more useful. There we go. What you can do, once you've got something that's relatively, once it's got that drop, you can go to the dresser mode and you can click initial state. Okay, which means when I go back to the beginning now, it won't have quite such a drop, and it will sort of revert. The trouble is you can keep doing that, so if I did initial state again and then back and then press play, it will just get lower and lower and lower and lower. You need to do it a little bit. There will always be, as far as I can tell, a little bit of a drop depending how much weight you've got and the gravity, because it's just simply the dynamics taking over from that. You can use potentially a mass and forces stuff, so you can make a stiffness map up here so that it is exceptionally stiff, and you could do that with probably a vertex map, and then the rest of it would be a little bit thinner. So this would be quite stiff and immovable, and this would be a little bit, you know, freer flowing. So I'm just going to stick that to 25. Okay, but a few things that I want to add in. See, we've got forces and we've got self-repulsion. Okay, and that means that as polygons get closer to each other, they will, within a certain distance, they will report. They will force each other apart, which means that it should stop any nasty collisions. Another thing to do that is under expert mode is self-collision. Self-collision allows the object to think, okay, I will not allow self-collision. It's an odd thing to enable, but you enable it and it means I will now notice when I collide and go, no, I will not merge, and you shouldn't get clipping where things go through each other. So if I press play now, you can see that, oh, it's starting to lag a little bit because of the amount of polygons and stuff I've got going on there. Maybe if I just, there you go, it hasn't got to display the polygons. But now if I use the curtain hooks, there you go, you can see we're getting some nice crinkling, and we should be avoiding the majority of any issues when it comes to self-collisions. Now the trouble is with polygons like this is that they will get a little bit jittery. If I just pause that and turn on the lines again, you can see that there's only so much detail in here and stuff starts to get a little bit liney. So what I will do is I will add my curtain into a cloth surface, so holding down Alt makes it a parent, and you can add in some thickness up there, and that will just make things a little bit thinner. And then I have a tendency of then putting that into a subdivision surface, which will thin it out even more. And you can see that all of a sudden we've got a lot more geometry, which may mean that this will hopefully not grind to a halt, but it might grind to a halt. So there you go, you can see that that bounces back up. And what I would do is probably hide the curtain hooks, because we don't want them visible in editors and renderers. But we do just want to be able to hide those. And we can click play, and then using the scale of this we can close those curtains, and we should get some nice wrinkles and some nice creases in our curtains that are nice and flowing. Okay, there is a lot of geometry in this for this to be thinking about, and my poor machine is starting to go a little bit crazy, but that's what happens when you add in a lot of geometry. There's always the payoff between what looks nice and what your computer can handle. So just to add in even more into the mess, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pause that. What you can add in some more dynamics. You've got the dynamics available here, so you can add in forces, wind, turbulence and things like that, but if you want a bit more control, then what you can do is you can actually use some of these. So I could use under the simulate, you've got particles, I can use the particle wind to add in a little bit of movement. So if I just move that a little bit further behind, you can see that there's a little arrow there that says this is the way I'm going to direct the wind. So for us it's the wrong way around. So I'm just going to turn that around so it's 180 degrees, so it's facing the curtain. And then you may want to increase the wind speed quite a bit, because I found that 5, I don't know, it won't do much at all. So now if I press play, I mean it will be quite slow, I imagine. But you can see that we are getting a lot more, we're getting some wind and we're getting some drafts, so the curtain is now starting to flap and flow. It's affected, it's stuck up here. I mean, maybe we need some more polygon under the belt, some of those points to stop it from sagging so much. It might be worth doing that sort of thing, or perhaps rather than lots of separate cubes, you could do it with one long cube that's got lots of geometry which you can scale in and out. That way you can stick those top ones to it. So even having just done this, I've now thought of another way that you could potentially stop all of those points from sagging, and that would be, rather than use lots of little cubes, you use one big cube with lots of subdivisions and you stick it all to it. So there's a whole load of different ways that we can get this working. I also think that perhaps the sheer number of points that I've got on my curtain might be driving this a little bit bonkers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to the beginning. Now you see I've got to be careful where my things are. I need to pause it. Let's press escape to stop it from doing anything. Go back to the beginning. Now I'm going to have to press undo, which is going to then get rid of my wind. So I'm just going to oh dear. So I'm just going to have to copy and paste that, and I'm going to press undo until the cube gets bigger. There we go. And then I can paste the wind object back in. And what I might do whilst we've got this set up, I might do what I said and just try it, which is to add these points into the belt to see if it will just stop that sagging quite so much. But it's kind of the laws of physics, really, isn't it? If you've got a curtain that's really heavy and you've got lots of material, then it will sag more. So let's just do that and click set. Oops, need to go on the belt, don't I? Click set. Oh, missed the bottom ones. And I might just turn off the cloth and the subdivision. Oh, you can see that. Oh yeah, we've got the wind working from the beginning. So again, I'm just going to cancel that, go back to the beginning, turn off the wind for the moment, just to see if we can get the curtain, what it's going to do with all of those. There you go. It bounces back up a little bit higher. think it's because I've missed the others, haven't I? I've missed those top ones. Yes. So, clunk. So, hopefully, there we go. Set points. And now let's press play. There we go, that's a bit better. Yeah, so you can see that they stick. So if we had some, maybe some intermediate points, or maybe more curtain rails, it's kind of up to you. Or say one long object, then with lots of subdivisions, then this would stick a little bit better, and we would end up with something that's, you know, that's easily scalable. But hopefully, guys, this has given you some nice tips and tricks onto how to get yourself your own wonderful flowing curtain. Okay, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe or check out blog.maxon.co.uk.